there we go. That's the end of that. Alrighty, I can tell, looking at my webcam there, I'm starting to get a little shaggy. A little shaggy. And tell you, there's been no opportunity to go visit the barber shop for the past few weeks. So, my apologies if my hair starts to resemble more and more a little Bernie Sanders every day. But it's getting a little unmanageable in the best of situations. How you all doing? No, it's not Friday today. Although with all these days off, you'd figure it was like a permanent weekend or something like that. A little Outer Limits action there, Halo Collector? Absolutely. Absolutely. A Floby. Good lord. I haven't seen that on TV since like 1992. As seen on TV. That's why you were asking last night about Friday book club. No, I thought you were asking because I did do one last Friday, but yeah, I honestly I don't think I can hold up for that. Yeah, it's been a very rough week. So yeah, they still sell them. I'm sure I'm sure someone's got a warehouse full of them still. Yeah, I'm sure you can find them up on eBay as the Floby magnate manages to flog one off on eBay once every 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm sure the warehouse is jam-packed full. The warehouse is also probably has shelves of bell-bottom jeans waiting for that big revival to roll around. They're going to make a killing when that happens. They've only been on the shelves for 40-odd years, 50. Taking up all that warehouse shelving. Alrighty, but anyway, how are we all doing this morning? I hope you're all doing well. Yeah, we had an interesting night gaming last night. That Bleeding Edge, man, I don't know what to think of that. If you go look at what people are saying on Twitter, and really no one should be paying much attention to what people say on Twitter, but if you do, very, very people seem to be quite passionate about their opinions on it. I don't know. That's never a good thing. But it's kind of weird because why do people get so passionate about things that they really don't care about? I don't know. On one hand, they're saying, I don't care about that game, it's dumb. And then they'll go into diatribes. It's like, okay. You seem to be caring not quite a lot right there. Alrighty, but anyway, it definitely has been a little squirrely with their servers, that's for sure. Yeah. The past 2 days actually have been booted out of games, and then it's kind of weird. Like the longer, I was gonna say the longer you play, it seems the more and more jerky the animation becomes. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, but it's interesting. It's very interesting. But yeah, but the hard part is keeping your group together, because yeah, everyone just wanders off all over the place, and yeah, it's like herding cats. That's what it's like. Trying to keep your team together. Yeah, because once you're separated, not good. Alrighty, but anyway, what are we doing today? We're reading short stories. We finished a book yesterday. Yes, we did. We finished. What was this? Like the 6th or 7th novel, I think, this year. I've lost track already. But it's been pretty good. It was pretty funny. I'll definitely be doing more of them if I have to look up and see which ones are in the public domain, because these are some of the books which fell through the cracks, as it were. Just like that movie that we're going to be watching this Sunday, His Girl Friday, a 1940 something or other movie, which should, if they'd played their cards right, still be well protected. But no, with changes to the copyright law, they actually muddled up which year they needed to re-extend their copyright in, and they missed it. They calculated wrong, and boop, there we go. Our luck, their loss. So yeah, this Sunday, watching His Girl Friday. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be awesome. Shadowtronics is doing well. That's cool. Lady Magritte's coming in with an auto host. Man, Look at all these auto hosts coming on in here. That's great. That's great. But yeah, but when they roll on out, our viewer numbers go. It's okay. Mickey Mouse is Soul is hang on. Soon. Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. There's a whole other set of issues going on there as well. Yeah, I know Steamboat Willie is that's about to pop out. Yeah, but here's the thing, even though something can fall out into the public domain, the whole the whole other issue of trademarks, ongoing concerns, blah blah blah, that has been where like a big focus has been recently. So even though Steamboat Willie, the actual little cartoon itself, will soon be in the public domain, none of the actual individual IPs from it become it's complicated, too complicated to discuss here. But anyway, you can't just go and take Mickey Mouse and start making your own shiznit now. So it just means Steamboat Willie, the actual film itself, is there, not the related, not the characters within it, which are still very heavily trademarked, protected, and yeah, there's going to be a lot of misunderstanding as soon as that one especially lands in the public domain. But yeah, it's and I think when I first started reading up on that kind of stuff, it was from the Sherlock Holmes estate, which let's see. Actually, I'm not up to date on that either. But basically, the estate claims, they made and were able to convince judges that even though individual stories were in there, that didn't mean the actual characters in the stories were up for grabs for new stuff. And so, it's complicated. It's complicated. Boy, oh boy. But that's neither here nor there. But anyway, so we try and behave ourselves here. At any rate, yeah. So the books that we read, the movies that we show and share, yeah, that they are legit 100% in the public domain. So that's always a good thing. Anyway, so today we're starting off with a short story. A short story was requested by Rose Morales, who is I don't think she's here, but that's okay. That's let's do it the other way. We'll start it backwards then. We'll start with our second story, which was not a special request, and then maybe if Rose comes in, there we go. And if not, well, she'll have something to listen to later. How about that? Yeah, we'll give her a chance to get on in here. Yeah. Do we have any other news? Yeah, I know I'm waffling. Let us Oh, that's what else I was going to say. I was going to say, if you are https://mixer.com/carringtontv. Yeah, so I was going to say, if you are enjoying this book reading stream, share it with your friends. There's the link for it. Yeah, throw it into your Facebook with a little, I don't know, type a little paragraph about what I am, what I do, what you like about it. Maybe your friends will too. And I know we are all kind of, hopefully most of us under some kind of a little lockdown or stay at home or school out or something like that. It's a great way to pass a couple of hours. Just have someone reading you stories, probably stuff that you've not heard before. It's a great way to take your mind off of the whole being stuck in there, stop you from going stir crazy. Check that cabin fever at the door. Get to listen to good stories. Get to do a little chit chat on the old social page off to the side. So yeah, let your friends know about it. Throw it into Facebook. Throw it into Twitter. If you do the Instagram, that's cool too. I know what that is. I ain't that out of touch. And yeah, that's where we are at. Now, and for the next couple of weeks, of course, I am also restreaming over to YouTube and Twitch. If anyone is over there right now, it looks like they're not. It's okay. I've never had any luck over there. Yeah, if anyone does pop into YouTube or Twitch there and is like, hey, what's all this about? Yeah, hello. We're over on Mixer, mixer.com/CarringtonTV, and that's our main stream. But yeah, for the next couple of weeks, I'll be restreaming over to there as well. Just in case, there's people looking for a little escapist entertainment, I'm sure, over there. The comic industry is dead. How's that? You have some exciting news about that, the comic industry? Hakuna Kanta. What is that? That's not Hakuna Matata. What is Huna Kanta? I don't know what Shadowtronics means, but that's okay. I'm not. It was the comic industry. Well, yeah, I guess you got to go in and pick up your comics if you have a hold on them. I don't know. Maybe Halo Collector means stand-up comic industry. Oh, main distribution is stopped for 3 months. Wow. Didn't know that. Yeah. This whole everything's back to normal in 2 weeks kind of thing. I don't know, man. Don't know. All right, we're gonna get through it the best we can, though. The best we can. Okay, so anyway, I guess we'll start with our second story. Where is it? It is, okay, we're going to start with the Old Nurse's story by Elizabeth Gaskell for Rose Morales, but she's not here. So we're going to start with something else. We're going to start with Into Space by Sterner St. Paul. Yeah, a bit of science fiction. I'm going to have to change the title now. 1 second. Into Space. No, we were all set up for the other one. Into Space by Sterner St. Paul. I'd like to have a saint there. Sterner St. Paul. Stephen St. Carrington. That'd be nice. That'd kind of be cool. St. Carrington. I'd be down for that. Alrighty, let's comic shops are too low of profit. Yeah, I don't know what their margin is on comics. I know that everything just goes through Diamond pretty much, but yeah, I don't know what their margin is on anything. Small businesses won't weather through. Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I know that. And this bill from the Senate. Oh, let's not go there. Let's not go there. All right. There we go. All right, let's do it. Let's start reading. Let's get into it. You came here for a little science fiction. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna read that. That'll. Oh, just need to take a little peek at something right here. 1 second. 74147. 75. Oh my lord. Yeah, alrighty. Whew. Okay, there is, yeah, there's some interesting stuff going down. Okay. We should get on with it. Let's do it. We're here for some book reading. Okay. Into Space by Sterner St. Paul. A loud hum filled the air, and suddenly the projectile rose, gaining speed rapidly. I guess that's the just the image title, not the start of the story. I'm down for that. Down for that. Alrighty. Many of my readers will remember the mysterious radio messages, which were heard by both amateur and professional shortwave operators during the nights of the 23rd and 24th of last September, and even more will remember the astounding discovery made by Professor Montesquieu of the Lick Observatory on the night of September 25th. At the time, some inspired writers tried to connect the two events, maintaining that the discovery of the fact that the Earth had a new satellite coincident with the receipt of the mysterious messages was evidence that the new planetoid was inhabited, and that the messages were attempts on the part of the inhabitants to communicate with us. Yeah, those points things are horribly broken there, Halo Collector. The fact that the messages were on a lower wavelength than any receiver then in existence could receive with any the fact that the messages were on a lower wavelength than any receiver then in existence could receive with any degree of clarity, and the additional fact that they appeared to come from an immense distance lent a certain air of plausibility to these evolutions in the Sunday magazine sections. For some weeks, the feature writers harped on the subject, but the hurried construction of new receivers, which would work on a lower wavelength, yielded no results, and the solemn pronouncement of astronomers to the effect that the new celestial body could by no possibility have an atmosphere on account of its small size finally put an end to the talk. So the matter lapsed into oblivion. While quite a few people will remember the two events I have noted, I doubt whether there are 500 people alive who will remember anything at all about the disappearance of Dr. Livermore of the University of Calvada on September 23rd. He was a man of some local prominence, but he had no more than a local fame, and few papers outside of California even noted the event in their columns. I do not think that anyone ever tried to connect up his disappearance with the radio messages or the discovery of the new earthly satellite, yet the three events were closely bound up together, and but for the doctor's disappearance the other two would never have happened. Dr. Livermore. Oh, that's Kirby Reeves. Hey, what's up? What's up, Kirby Reeves? How you doing? Dr. Livermore. Okay, so yeah, if you're just joining us, a new moon has just appeared around the Earth, which is apparently completely not connected to the messages from space that we've just started receiving. Not connected. Dr. Livermore taught physics at Calvada, or at least he taught the subject when he remembered that he had a class and felt like teaching. His students never knew whether he would appear at class or not, but he always passed everyone who took his courses, and so, of course, they were always crowded. The university authorities used to remonstrate with him, but his ability as a research worker was so well known and recognized that he was allowed to go about as he pleased. He was a bachelor who lived alone, and who had no interests in life, so far as anyone knew, other than his work. Good morning, Lady Death. I first made contact with him when I was a freshman at Calvada, and for some unknown reason he took a liking to me. My father had insisted that I follow in his footsteps as an electrical engineer. Yeah. Whoa, boy. And a good morning to you. On the warpath already, I see. Oh. Alrighty. I first made contact with him when I was a freshman at Calvada, and for some unknown reason he took a liking to me. My father had insisted that I follow in his footsteps as an electrical engineer. As he was paying my bills, I had to make a show at studying engineering, while I clandestinely pursued my hobby, literature. Dr. Livermore's courses were the easiest in the school, and they counted as science, so I regularly registered for them, cut them, and attended a class in literature as an auditor. The doctor used to meet me on the campus and laughingly scold me for my absence, but he was really in sympathy with my ambition, and he regularly gave me a passing mark and my units of credit without regard to my attendance, or rather lack of it. When I graduated from Calvada, I was theoretically an electrical engineer. Practically, I had a pretty good knowledge of contemporary literature and knew almost nothing about my so-called profession. I stalled around Dad's office for a few months until I landed a job as a cub reporter on the San Francisco Graphic, and then I quit him cold. When the storm blew over, Dad admitted that you couldn't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, and agreed with a grunt to my new line of work. He said that I would probably be a better reporter than an engineer, because I couldn't by any possibility be a worse one, and let it go at that. However, all this has nothing to do with the story. It just explains how I came to be acquainted with Dr. Livermore in the first place, and why he sent for me on September 22nd in the second place. The morning of the 22nd, the city editor called me in and asked me if I knew old liver pills. "He says that he has a good story ready to break, but he won't talk to anyone but you," went on Barnes. "I offered to send out a good man, for when old liver pills starts a story it ought to be good, but all I got was a high-powered bawling out. He said that he would talk to you or no one, and would just as soon talk to no one as to me any longer. Then he hung up. You'd better take a run out to Calvada and see what he has to say. I can have a good man rewrite your drivel when you get back." I was more or less used to that sort of talk from Barnes, so I paid no attention to it. I drove my flivver down to Calvada and asked for the doctor. "Dr. Livermore," said the bursar. "Why, he hasn't been around here for the last 10 months. This is his sabbatical year, and he's spending it on a ranch he owns up at Hat Creek near Mount Lassen. You'll have to go there if you want to see him." I knew better than to report back to Barnes without the story, so there was nothing to it but to drive up to Hat Creek, and a long, hard drive it was. I made Redding late that night. The next day I drove on to Burney and asked for directions to the doctor's ranch. "Oh, so you're going up to Doc Livermore's, are you?" asked the postmaster, my informant. "Have you got an invitation?" I assured him that I had. "It's a good thing," he replied, "because he don't allow anyone on his place without one. I'd like to go up there myself and see what's going on, but I don't want to get shot at like old Pete Johnson did when he tried to drop in on the doc and pay him a little call. There's something mighty funny going on up there." Naturally, I tried to find out what was going on, but evidently the postmaster, who was also the express agent, didn't know. All he could tell me was that a lot of junk had come for the doctor by express, and that a lot more had been hauled in by truck from Redding. "What kind of junk?" I asked him. "Almost everything. Bub, sheet steel, machinery, batteries, cases of glass, and Lord knows what all. It's been going on ever since he landed here. He has a bunch of Indians working for him, and he don't let a white man on the place." Forced to be satisfied with this meager information. Good morning, Lightning FNC. Good morning. Forced to be satisfied with this meager information, I started old Lizzie and lit out for the ranch. After I had turned off the main trail, I met no one until the ranch house was in sight. As I rounded a bend in the road, which brought me in sight of the building, I was forced to put on my brakes at top speed to avoid running into a chain which was stretched across the road. An Indian armed with a Winchester rifle stood behind it, and when I stopped, he came up and asked my business. "My business is with Dr. Livermore," I said tartly. "You got letter?" he inquired. "No." "No letter, no doctor," he replied, and walked stolidly back to his post. "This is absurd," I shouted, and drove Lizzie up to the chain. I saw that it was merely hooked to a ring at the end, and I climbed out and started to take it down. A .30-30 bullet embedded itself in the post, an inch or two from my head, and I changed my mind about taking down that change. "No letter, no doctor," said the Indian laconically, as he pumped another shell into his gun. I was balked until I noticed a pair of telephone wires running from the house to the tree to which one end of the chain was fastened. "Is that a telephone to the house?" I demanded. The Indian grunted an assent. "Dr. Livermore telephoned me to come and see him," I said. "Can't I call him up and see if he still wants to see me?" The Indian debated the question with himself for a minute, and then nodded a doubtful assent. I cranked the old coffee mill type of telephone, which I found, and presently heard the voice of Dr. Livermore. This is Tom Faber, Doctor, I said. The Graphic sent me up to get a story from you, but there's an Indian here who started to murder me when I tried to get past your barricade. Oh, good for him, chuckled the doctor. I heard the shot, but didn't know he was shooting at you. Tell him to come talk to me. The Indian took the telephone at my bidding and listened for him. You go in, he agreed when he hung up the receiver. He took down the chain, and I drove on up to the house to find the doctor waiting for me on the veranda. Hello, Tom, he greeted me heartily. So, you had trouble with my guard, did you? I nearly got murdered, I said ruefully. I expect that Joe would have drilled you if you tried to force your way in, he remarked cheerfully. I forgot to tell him that you were coming today. I told him you'd be here yesterday, but yesterday isn't today to that Indian. I wasn't sure you would get here at all, in point of fact, for I didn't know whether that old fool I talked to in your office would send you or someone else. If anyone else had been sent, he would never have got by Joe, I can tell you. Come in. Where's your bag? I haven't one, I replied. I went to Calvert yesterday to see you, and didn't know until I got there that you were up here. The doctor chuckled. I guess I forgot to tell you where I was, he said. That man I talked to got me so mad that I hung up on him before I told him. It doesn't matter, though. I can dig you up a new toothbrush, and I guess you can make out with that. Come in. I followed him into the house, and he showed me a room fitted with a crude bunk, a washstand, a bowl, and a pitcher. You won't have many luxuries here, Tom, he said, but you won't need to stay here for more than a few days. My work is done. I'm ready to start. In fact, I would have started yesterday instead of today had you arrived. Now, don't ask any questions. It's nearly lunchtime. What's the story, Doctor? I asked after lunch, as I puffed one of his excellent cigars. And why did you pick me to tell it to? Oh, for several reasons, he replied, ignoring my first question. In the first place, I like you, and I think that you can keep your mouth shut until you're told to open it. In the second place, I've always found that you had the gift of vision or imagination and have the ability to believe. In the third place, you are the only man I know who had the literary ability to write up a good story, and at the same time has the scientific background to grasp what it is all about. Understand that unless I have your promise not to write this story until I tell you that you can, not a word will I tell you. Good morning, Paul Quinn. Oh, wow, Legiozone's here as well. Wow, Triassic Trials, piling up. Wow. And, of course, Lightning was here. For those who've just joined us, here's where we are in the story. Messages have been received from outer space. A new moon has been discovered circling the Earth. And this reporter has been summoned by his old college professor to come up to learn about some story. That's as far as we've got. Still very all up in the air. We don't know what's going on yet. We don't know what's going on. Good morning, D-Cloud. D-Cloud's here as well. Good gracious. Don't forget also. Oh, wrong button. Wrong button. If you are just arrived, feel free to throw my link down into your favorite social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, what have you. Smoke signals. Let your friends know about this book club stream. Yeah, if maybe you got some friends that need a little distraction for a few hours every day because they're stuck at home, off from work, off from school. Let them know about. Write a little paragraph about what you like about it, and link to the channel here. And maybe your friends will enjoy it too. Maybe. Yeah, I'm not very good at the only thing I use is Twitter, and I'm always on that. But yeah, it couldn't hurt to throw a little Facebook action around. Yeah. Hey, morbid curiosity. Okay, let's get on with our story. So everyone's up to date, right? Okay, here we go. Okay. Understand that unless I have your promise not to write this story until I tell you that you can, Not a word will I tell you." I reflected for a moment. The graphic would expect the story when I got back, but on the other hand, I knew that, unless I gave the desired promise, the doctor wouldn't talk. "All right," I assented. "I'll promise. It's not too crowded. The more the merrier. Just don't get too close together." "Good," he replied. "In that case, I'll tell you all about it. No doubt you, like the rest of the world, think I'm crazy." "Why, not at all," I stammered. In point of fact, I had often harbored such a suspicion. "Oh, that's all right," he went on cheerfully. "I am crazy. Crazy as a loon, which, by the way, is a highly sensible bird with a well-balanced mentality. There is no doubt that I am crazy, but my craziness is not of the usual type. Mine is the insanity of genius." He looked at me sharply as he spoke, but long sessions at poker in the San Francisco Press Club had taught me how to control my facial muscles, and I never batted an eye. He seemed satisfied, and went on. "From your college work you are familiar with the laws of magnetism," he said. "Perhaps, considering just what your college career really was, I might better say that you are supposed to be familiar with them." I joined with him in his laughter. "It won't require a very deep knowledge to follow the thread of my argument," he went on. "You know, of course, that the force of magnet attraction is inversely proportional to the square of the distances separating the magnet and the attracted particles, and that each magnetized particle had two poles, a positive and a negative pole, or a north pole and a south pole, as they are usually called." I nodded. "Consider for a moment that the laws of magnetism, insofar as concerns the relation between distance and power of attraction, are exactly matched by the laws of gravitation." "But there the similarity between the two forces ends," I interrupted. "But there the similarity does not end," he said sharply. "That is the crux of the discovery which I have made, that magnetism and gravity are one and the same, or rather that the two are separate but similar manifestations of one force. The parallel between the two grows closer with each succeeding experiment. You know, for example, that each magnetized particle has two poles. Similarly, each gravitized particle, to coin a new word, had two poles, one positive and one negative. Every particle on the earth is so oriented that the negative poles point toward the positive center of the earth. This is what causes the commonly known phenomena of gravity, or weight." "I can prove the fallacy of that in a moment," I retorted. "There are none so blind as those who will not see," he quoted with an icy smile. "I can probably predict your puerile argument, but go ahead and present it." "All righty. Good morning, Gotham Gotcha. Hey, what's up? And Tillable Cat's here as well. What's shaking? How you all doing? Oh boy, how you liking that Doom?" Yeah. A Superfly superhero. That's the Gotham Gotcha. Yeah, he is. You loving Doom? Nice. And Animal Crossing. I am amazed at how many people are playing the Animal Crossing. I'm assuming you've seen all the Doom and Animal Crossing mashups too, with Isabel. It's been pretty funny. Very good. All right, okay, we're going to get back to our story. There we go. If two magnets are placed so that the north pole of one is in juxtaposition to the south pole of the other, they attract one another, I said. If the position of the magnets be reversed so that the two similar poles are opposite, they will repel. If your theory were correct, a man standing on his head would fall off the earth. Exactly what I expected, he replied. "Now let me ask you a question. Have you ever seen a small bar magnet placed within the field of attraction of a large electromagnet? Of course you have, and you have noticed that, when the north pole of the bar magnet was pointed toward the electromagnet, the bar was attracted. However, when the bar was reversed and the south pole pointed toward the electromagnet, the bar was still attracted. You doubtless remember that experiment." But in that case, the magnetism of the electromagnet was so large that the polarity of the small magnet was reversed, I cried. "Exactly. And the field of gravity of the Earth is so great compared to the gravity of a man that when he stands on his head, his polarity is instantly reversed." This is some really specious science, by the way. I nodded. His explanation was too logical for me to pick a flaw in it. "If that same bar magnet were held in the field of the electromagnet, with its north pole pointed toward the magnet, and then, by the action of some outside force of sufficient power, its polarity were reversed, the bar would be repelled. If the magnetism were neutralized and held exactly neutral, it would neither be repelled nor attracted, but would act only as the force of gravity impelled it. Is that clear?" "Perfectly," I assented. "Then that paves the way for what I have to tell you. I have developed an electrical method of neutralizing the gravity of a body while it is within the field of the Earth, and also, by a slight extension, a method of entirely reversing its polarity." I nodded calmly. "Do you realize what this means?" he cried. "No," I replied, puzzled by his great excitement. "Man alive!" he cried. "It means that the problem of aerial flight is entirely revolutionized, and that the era of interplanetary travel is at hand. Suppose that I construct an airship and then render it neutral to gravity. It would weigh nothing, absolutely nothing. The tiniest propeller would drive it at almost incalculable speed with a minimum consumption of power, for the only resistance to its motion would be the resistance of the air. If I were to reverse the polarity, it would be repelled from the Earth with the same force with which it is now attracted, and it would rise with the same acceleration as a body falls toward the Earth. It would travel to the Earth in 2 hours and 40 minutes. Air resistance would... There is no air a few miles from the Earth. Of course, I do not mean that such a craft would take off from the Earth and land on the Moon 3 hours later. There are 2 things which would interfere with that. One is the fact that the propelling force, the gravity of the Earth, would diminish as the square of the distance from the center of the Earth, and the other is that when the band of neutral attraction, or rather repulsion, between the Earth and the Moon had been reached, it would be necessary to decelerate so as to avoid a smash on landing. I have been over the whole thing, and I find that it would take 29 hours and 52 minutes to make the whole trip. The entire thing is perfectly possible. In fact, I have asked you here to witness and report the first interplanetary trip to be made." "Have you constructed such a device?" I cried. "My spaceship is finished and ready for your inspection," he replied. "If you will come with me, I will show it to you." Okay, this whole business about magnets is, I don't know, man. Hardly knowing what to believe, I followed him from the house and to a huge barn-like structure, over 100 feet high, which stood nearby. He opened the door and switched on a light, and there before me stood what looked at first glance to be a huge artillery shell, but of a size larger than any ever made. It was constructed of sheet steel, and while the lower part was solid, the upper sections had huge glass windows set in them. On the point was a mushroom-shaped protuberance. It measured perhaps 50 feet in diameter and was 140 feet high, the doctor informed me. A ladder led from the floor to a door about 50 feet from the ground. I followed the doctor up the ladder and into the space flyer. Hey, thank you, Lightning. That's very cool, thank you. I followed the doctor up the ladder and into the space flyer. The door led us into a comfortable living room through a double-door arrangement. The whole hull beneath us, explained the doctor, is filled with batteries and machinery, except for a space in the center, where a shaft leads to a glass window in the bottom so that I can see behind me, so to speak. The space above is filled with storerooms and the air-purifying apparatus. On this level is my bedroom, kitchen, and other living rooms, together with a laboratory and an observatory. There is a central control room located on an upper level, but it need seldom to be entered, for the craft can be controlled by a system of relays from this room or from any other room in the ship. I suppose that you are more or less familiar with imaginative stories of interplanetary travel. I nodded an assent. In that case, there is no use in going over the details of the air purifying and such matters, he said. The story writers have worked out all that sort of thing in great detail, and there's nothing novel in my arrangements. I carry food and water for 6 months, and air enough for 2 months by constant renovating. Have you any question you wish to ask? One objection I have seen frequently raised to the idea of interplanetary travel is that the human body could not stand the rapid acceleration which would be necessary to attain speed enough to ever get anywhere. How do you overcome this? My dear boy, who knows what the human body can stand? When the locomotive was first invented, learned scientists predicted that the limit of speed was 30 miles an hour, as the human body could not stand a higher speed. Today, the human body stands a speed of 360 miles an hour without ill effects. At any rate, on my first trip I intend to take no chances. We know that the body can stand an acceleration of 32 feet per second without trouble. That is the rate of acceleration due to gravity, and is the rate at which a body increases speed when it falls. This is the acceleration which I shall use. Remember that the space traveled by a falling body in a vacuum is equal to 1/2 the acceleration multiplied by the square of the elapsed time. The moon, to which I intend to make my first trip, is only 280,000 miles, or 1,478,400,000 feet from us. With an acceleration of 32 feet per second, I would pass the moon 2 hours and 40 minutes after leaving the Earth. If I later take another trip, say to Mars, I will have to find a means of increasing my acceleration, possibly by the use of the rocket principle. Then will be time enough to worry about what my body will stand. Is that how far the moon, 280,000 miles? Is that it? How far is the moon from the Earth? It is 238,000 miles. All right. Okay, that sounds fairly close. All right. All right. All right. Shadowtronics can't put Doom down. Nice. Yeah, I was kind of surprised at the limited lives thing in it there. I don't recall that from the original Doom. Maybe it did. I don't know. Back in the old days. Right. Where we at? Oh, back in our book. Here we go. A short calculation verified the figures the doctor had given me, and I stood convinced. Are you really going? I asked. Most decidedly. To repeat, I would have started yesterday had you arrived. As it is, I'm ready to start at once. We will go back to the house for a few minutes while I show you the location of an excellent telescope through which you may watch my progress, and instruct you in the use of an ultra-short wave receiver, which I am confident will pierce the heaviside layer. With this I will keep in communication with you, although I have made no arrangements for you to send messages to me on this trip. I intend to go to the moon and land. I will take atmosphere samples through an airport, and if there is an atmosphere which will support life, I will step out on the surface. If there is not, I will return to the Earth. What's up there, Bongwater? What's up? Mr. Brotoad, yeah. A few minutes was enough for me to grasp the simple manipulations which I would have to perform, and I followed him again to the space flyer. Oh my lord! Good lord. Ooh, thank you, Mr. Paul Quinn. Gave me a heart attack, though. Very nice. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, there we go. Hit our weekly goal. Thank you to Mr. Quinn. Thank you. Yeah. I dig it. Nice. He's Mr. Paul Quinn, and a fellow of excellent taste, high intelligence, better than average wisdom, handsome, plus 10%. All of these are the benefits of being a channel sub. Plus, as well, there is a super secret section in the Discord where I've made recordings and put in various other things. There's a whole bunch of other perks in the super secret section of Discord there, Mr. Paul Quinn. Yeah. Very nice. Thank you. Yeah. So if you link your Discord to Mixer there, it'll automatically show up this great little section over there, just for the channel sub people. Yeah, so a whole bunch of short stories which I'm recording. I'm working my way through 51 Tales by Lord Dunsany. 11 are up there so far. Actually, I need to record more this weekend, actually. I should probably do that this afternoon. Oh, actually, no, tomorrow when my voice has recovered a bit. But yeah, thank you. So actually this week, Paul Quinn, we had Shadowtronics, gift one to Halo Collector. We had art by Galen, gift one to Philby Reeves. Good lord, I have to look it up. Not Philby. Paul. No, was it Paul Reeves? No, it was someone Reeves. I can't believe I'm spacing on that. No one's showing you the secret handshake yet. That is one of the innermost mysteries. Well, yeah, man. Or the password to get into the into the Carrington Temple, Temple Lodge, the Carrington Lodge. All right, okay, so he's going to take a moonwalk. A few minutes was enough for me to grasp the simple A few minutes was enough for me to grasp the simple manipulations which I would have to perform, and I followed him again to the space flyer. How are you going to get it out? I asked. Watch, he said. He worked some levers and the roof of the barn folded back, leaving the way clear for the departure of the huge projectile. I followed him inside and he climbed the ladder. When I shut the door, go back to the house and test the radio, he directed. The door clanged shut, and I hastened into the house. His voice came plainly enough. I went back to the flyer and waved him a final farewell, which he acknowledged through a window. Then I returned to the receiver. A loud hum filled the air, and suddenly the projectile rose and flew out through the open roof, gaining speed rapidly, until it was a mere speck in the sky. It vanished. I had no trouble in picking him up with the telescope. In fact, I could see the doctor through one of the windows. I have passed beyond the range of the atmosphere, Tom, came his voice over the receiver. And I find that everything is going exactly as it should. I feel no discomfort, and my only regret is that I did not install a transmitter in the house so that you could talk to me. But there is no real necessity for it. I'm going to make some observations now, but I will call you again with a report of progress in half an hour. Good morning, Robert Gaming. Good morning. What is going on? Oh, the Arcabots are coming on by. Some of the true crew piling on in. How you all doing? Good morning. For the rest of the afternoon and all of that night, I received his messages regularly, but with the coming of daylight, they began to fade. By 9 o'clock, I could get only a word here and there. By noon, I could hear nothing. I went to sleep, hoping that the night would bring better reception, nor was I disappointed. About 8 o'clock, I received a message, rather faintly, but nonetheless distinctly. I regret more than ever that I did not install a transmitter, so that I could learn from you whether you are receiving my messages, his voice said faintly. I have no idea of whether you can hear me or not, but I will keep on repeating this message every hour while my battery holds out. It is now 30 hours since I left the Earth, and I should be on the moon, according to my calculations, but I am not, and never will be. I am caught at the neutral point, where the gravity of the Earth and the moon are exactly equal. I had relied on my momentum to carry me over this point. Once over it, I expected to reverse my polarity and fall on the moon. My momentum did not do so. If I keep my polarity as it was when left the Earth, both the Earth and the moon repel me. If I reverse it, they both attract me, and again I cannot move. If I had equipped my space flyer with a rocket so that I could move a few miles, or even a few feet, from the deadline, I could proceed, but I did not do so, and I cannot move forward or back. Apparently, I am doomed to stay here until my air gives out. Then my body, entombed in my spaceship, will endlessly circle the Earth as a satellite until the end of time. There is no hope for me, for long before a duplicate of my device, equipped with rockets, could be constructed and come to my rescue, my air would be exhausted. Goodbye, Tom. You may write your story as soon as you wish. I will repeat my message in 1 hour. Goodbye. At 9 and at 10 o'clock, the message was repeated. At 11, it started again, but after a few sentences, the sound suddenly ceased, and the receiver went dead. I thought that the fault was with the receiver, and I toiled feverishly the rest of the night, but without result. I learned later that the messages heard all over the world ceased at the same hour. The next morning, Professor Montesquieu announced his discovery of the world's new satellite. All right. Well, that ended on a bit of a bummer. Okay. I guess it is a little open-ended. They could have come up with a sequel to that. They just need Michel Ardan to come to the rescue. I'm sure he is available. Yeah. Okay, that's a bit of a grim way to end that one. Wow. But I don't know. These are the things which happen in the great endeavors like that, space travel. It was kind of a very specious argument that he made, though, just like talking about how gravity is. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this was written in what, 1931. So yeah, I mean, our understanding of science back then was it was quite different. Quite different. You have to make allowances for that. Michel Ardan needs his own story, maybe. Yeah. Ground control to Major Tom, indeed. So, okay, that's where our new satellite came from. Okay, no, I thought it was going to be more invasion of Earth kind of thing there. I didn't realize that I thought it was like a some kind of what has gone before kind of introduction at the beginning, where they talked about the messages from space, but and the new satellite. So I was kind of expecting some kind of Martian invasion or something, but no, that was a the rest of the story, like, just basically fills. Yeah, the beginning was basically the ending, basically. All right. Okay, so that was different. That was okay. That was yeah. All right. There's one book I should read. Which one? Which one is that, Robert Gaming? I'm all ears. I take special requests all the time. Oh, by the way, speaking of special requests, we were supposed to start tonight with one for Rose Morales, but Rose Morales is not here. So what do? Do we save it for her, or do we read it now and then be like, Neener, we read it? I think we should hold off until she gets here, but that might not be today. Maybe, yeah, we'll save it for Sunday. We'll save it for Sunday. Yeah, okay, yeah. All right, there's let's see where we at. You guys are the good people sitting on my shoulder, like the little angel side sitting there. Anything by Ray? Yeah, Ray Bradbury's got a he's got a lot of stuff like that. Yeah, his Illustrated Man. There's that one. Was it the Kaleidoscope? I think it's called. About the astronaut who his ship got he was in orbit around the Earth, and his spaceship gets crippled, can't land, so everyone has to like jump out into space in their spacesuits, and they're all orbiting, but he's slowly being pulled. His orbit, he's gradually getting closer and closer to the Earth. And he just spends a lot of time thinking about his family, I think. I don't think he was able to talk to them, or whatever. But yeah, he just yeah, and he gets closer and closer, and eventually, spoiler.
Killable Cat 8011 sent 50 embers with the message, WHM astronaut. Oh look, new satellite.
Exactly. Oh, there we go. There's a guy found a spaceman. Nice. Very cool. Okay, I like that. That's a very nice and appropriate. Robert says, is the Alcoholics Anonymous big book? Well, I don't know. Let me just look that one up real fast. All right. So why should I be reading this out? You know, that's probably actually protected under copyright, I would think. All right, but that's generally not what we do here, Robert Gaming. Generally not what we do here. Oh yeah. Anyway, yeah. So the yeah, so I think it was called Kaleidoscope or something. I'm pretty sure it was in the Illustrated Man collection of short stories. And yeah. Anyway, okay. Let's find something else to read then. Okay, I thought we might have had let's see, what else we got in here. Ooh, the corpse on the creatures of the light. Maybe that'll be good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 50, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 60, 1, 2, that's too long. That'll be too long. The corpse on the grating, how long is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. Yes! We're doing that one, the corpse on the grating. That sounds amazing. The corpse on the grating. The history of Alcoholics Anonymous and the stories in the back are blooming beautiful. They might well be. They might well be. Let's see. The corpse on the Grating by Hugh B. Cave. By Hugh B. Cave. Boop. There we go. Try that. Very good. I'm on the wrong page in my book. There we go. Wow, this is my lag is, wow, my low latency says it's on, but that is not the case at all. Good gracious, that took forever. There's a massive delay going on right now. There's like a 30-second delay. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. It's full of stars, Tillable Cat. It's full of stars. Alrighty. Oh, there we go. Let's move this thing down. Where are we at? 1 second. Just gotta move that down a little. This title's too big. Whoa. Yeah. Just trying to move this thing. There we go. That's more like it. Okay. We got it. We got it. Move that into position. There we go. Okay. So we're going to continue with our astounding stories. I think that's going to work okay. Let's do it. Let's do it. Thank you once again, Tillable Cat Embers. I like him. Thank you. And thank you. Paul Quinn, art by Galen and his gift sub, and Shadowtronics for his gift sub as well. We've made the weekly goal. The weekly goal. Yes. I like that. With 4 days to go. Alrighty, let's do it. Let us get on. Let's keep entertaining. Let's read some stories. Let's have some fun. All right. Oh, sorry. I need to check one more thing. Well, I keep forgetting to open this page at the beginning. Just taking a little peek in here. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. The Corpse on the Grating by Hugh B. Cave. It was a corpse standing before me, like some propped-up thing from the grave. Yeah, that's just I guess the subtitle just for the picture, not the start of the story. Let's try it out. Okay, this may be a little spoopy. I don't know. It's still family friendly. I mean, this is like 1931 magazine, so yep. It'll be fairly tame. It'll be fairly tame. It was 10 o'clock on the morning of December 5 when M.S. and I left the study of Professor Daimler. You are perhaps acquainted with M.S. His name appears constantly in the pages of the Illustrated News, in conjunction with some very technical article on psychoanalysis or with some extensive study of the human brain and its functions. He is a psycho-fanatic, more or less, and has spent an entire lifetime of some 70-odd years in pulling apart human skulls for the purpose of investigation. Lovely pursuit. For some 20 years I have mocked him in a friendly, half-hearted fashion. I am a medical man, and my own profession is one that does not sympathize with radicals. As for Professor Daimler, the third member of our triangle, perhaps if I take a moment to outline the events of that evening, the professor's part in what follows will become less obscure. We had called on him, M.S. and I, at his urgent request. His rooms were in a narrow, unlighted street, just off the square, and Daimler himself opened the door to us. A tall, loosely built chap he was, standing in the doorway like a motionless ape, arms half extended. "I've summoned you, gentlemen," he said quietly, "because you two, of all London, are the only persons who know the nature of my recent experiments. I should like to acquaint you with the results." He led the way to his study, then kicked the door shut with his foot, seizing my arm as he did so. Quietly he dragged me to the table that stood against the farther wall. In the same even, unemotional tone of a man completely sure of himself, he commanded me to inspect it. For a moment, in the semi-gloom of the room, I saw nothing. At length, however, the contents of the table revealed themselves, and I distinguished a motley collection of test tubes, each filled with some fluid. The tubes were attached to each other by some ingenious arrangement of thistles, and at the end of the table, where a chance blow could not brush it aside, lay a tiny phial of the resulting serum. From the appearance of the table, Daimler had evidently drawn a certain amount of gas from each of the smaller tubes, distilling them through acid into the minute phial at the end. Yet even now, as I stared down at the fantastic paraphernalia before me, I could sense no conclusive reason for its existence. I turned to the professor with a quiet stare of bewilderment. He smiled. "The experiment is over," he said. "As to its conclusion, you, Dale, as a medical man, will be skeptical. And you," turning to M.S., "as a scientist, you will be amazed. I, being neither physician nor scientist, am merely filled with wonder." He stepped to a long, square, table-like structure in the center of the room. Standing over it, he glanced quizzically at M.S., then at me. "For a period of 2 weeks," he went on, "I have kept, on the table here, the body of a man who has been dead more than a month. I have tried, gentlemen, with acid combinations of my own origination, to bring that body back to life. And I have failed. But," he added quickly, noting the smile that crept across my face, "that failure was in itself worth more than the average scientist's greatest achievement. You know, Dale, that heat, if a man is not truly dead, will sometimes resurrect him. In a case of epilepsy, for instance, victims have been pronounced dead only to return to life, sometimes in the grave. I say, if a man be not truly dead, but what if that man is truly dead? Does the cure alter itself in any manner? The motor of your car dies. Do you bury it? You do not. You locate the faulty part, correct it, and infuse new life. And so, gentlemen, after remedying the ruptured heart of this dead man, by operation, I proceeded to bring him back to life. I used heat. Terrific heat will sometimes originate a spark of new life in something long dead. Gentlemen, on the 4th day of my tests, following a continued application of electric and acid heat, the patient—" Daimler leaned over the table and took up a cigarette. Lighting it, he dropped the match and resumed his monologue. "The patient turned suddenly over and drew his arm weakly across his eyes. I rushed to his side. When I reached him, the body was once again stiff and lifeless. And it has remained so. Good morning, Orgon." The professor stared at us quietly, waiting for comment. I answered him as carelessly as I could, with a shrug of my shoulders. "Professor, have you ever played with the dead body of a frog?" I said softly. He shook his head silently. "You would find it interesting sport," I told him. "Take a common dry-cell battery with enough voltage to render a sharp shock, then apply your wires to various parts of the frog's anatomy. If you are lucky and strike the right set of muscles, you will have the pleasure of seeing a dead frog leap suddenly forward. Understand, he will not regain life. You have merely released his dead muscles by shock and sent him bolting." The professor did not reply. I could feel his eyes on me, and had I turned, I should probably have found M.S. glaring at me in honest hate. These men were students of mesmerism, of spiritualism, and my commonplace contradiction was not over welcome. "You are cynical, Dale," said M.S. coldly, "because you do not understand." "Understand? I'm a doctor, not a ghost." But M.S. had turned eagerly to the professor. "Where is this body, this experiment?" he demanded. Daimler shook his head. Evidently he had acknowledged failure, and did not intend to drag his dead man before our eyes, unless he could convince that man forth alive unless he could bring that man forth alive, upright, and ready to join our conversation. "I've put it away," he said distantly. "There is nothing more to be done, now that our reverend doctor has insisted in making a matter-of-fact thing out of our experiment. You understand, I had not intended to go in for wholesale resurrection, even if I had met with success. It was my belief that a dead body, like a dead piece of mechanism, can be brought to life again, provided we are intelligent enough to discover the secret. And by God, it is still my belief." Hey, pirated stream. He's here to pirate my stream. No. How you doing, man? That was the situation, then, when MS and I paced slowly back along the narrow street that contained the professor's dwelling place. My companion was strangely silent. More than once I felt his eyes upon me in an uncomfortable stare, yet he said nothing. Nothing, that is, until I had opened the conversation with some casual remark about the lunacy of the man we had just left. "You are wrong in mocking him, Dale," MS replied bitterly. "Daimler is a man of science. He is no child, experimenting with a toy. He's a grown man who has the courage to believe in his powers. One of these days—" He had intended to say that someday I should respect the professor's efforts. One of these days. The interval of time was far shorter than anything so indefinite. The first event, with its succeeding series of horrors, came within the next 3 minutes. We had reached a more deserted section of the square. No one's scared, right? Everyone's okay so far. I mean, this is... Yeah, just want to make sure. No one's got a weak heart here or anything like that, right? Because I don't want to be responsible if it was too much and someone keels over from fright and shock. We had reached a more deserted section of the square, a black, uninhabited street, extending like a shadowed band of darkness between gaunt, high walls. I had noticed for some time that the stone structure beside us seemed to be unbroken by door or window, that it appeared to be a single gigantic building, black and forbidding. I mentioned the fact to MS. "The warehouse," he said simply. "A lonely, God-forsaken place. We shall probably see the flicker of the watchman's light in one of the upper chinks." At his words, I glanced up. True enough, the higher part of the grim structure was punctuated by a narrow barred opening. Safety vaults, probably. But the light, unless its tiny gleam was somewhere in the inner recesses of the warehouse, was dead. The great building was like an immense burial vault, a tomb, silent and lifeless. Helga Maria's here. Hey, Helga, how you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. I hope your week has been good. I hope you've had time to rest and recuperate. Tillable Cat is terrified. Absolutely terrified by what he sees on the news, but the story ain't doing nothing for him. All right, okay, all right, fair enough, fair enough. Fair enough. Sipping that coffee down. You're doing better? Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. One day at a time, right? One day at a time. Doing good here. Still no work. It's, you know... it's not even auditions going out. It's terrible. All right, but we're making do. We're doing the best we can, and sometimes that's all you can do. That's all you can do. There we go. Oh, we've got some candies. You're working 2 days a week? Wow. Well, I'm quite jealous. We do what we can. We had reached the most forbidding section of the narrow street, where a single arch lamp overhead cast a halo of ghastly yellow light over the pavement. At the very rim of the circle of illumination, where the shadows were deeper and more silent, I could make out the black moldings of a heavy iron grating. The bars of metal were designed, I believe, to seal the side entrance of the great warehouse from night marauders. It was bolted in place and secured with a set of immense chains. Immovable. This much I saw as my intent gaze swept the wall before me. This huge tomb of silence held for me a peculiar fascination, and as I paced along beside my gloomy companion, I stared directly ahead of me into the darkness of the street. I wished to God my eyes had been closed or blinded. He was hanging on the grating. Hanging there, with white, twisted hands clutching the rigid bars of iron, straining to force them apart. His whole distorted body was forced against the barrier like the form of a madman struggling to escape from his cage. His face, the image of it, still haunts me whenever I see iron bars in the darkness of a passage. It was the face of a man who has died from utter, stark horror. It was frozen in a silent shriek of agony, staring out at me with fiendish maliciousness. Lips twisted apart, white teeth gleaming in the light, bloody eyes with a horrible glare of colorless pigment. And dead. I believe MS saw him at the very instant I recoiled. I felt a sudden grip on my arm, and then, as an exclamation came harshly from my companion's lips, I was pulled forward roughly. I found myself staring straight into the dead eyes of that fearful thing before me, found myself standing rigid, motionless, before the corpse that hung within reach of my arm. And then, through that overwhelming sense of the horrible, came the quiet voice of my comrade, the voice of a man who looks upon death as nothing more than an opportunity for research. "The fellow has been frightened to death, Dale. Frightened most horribly. Note the expression of his mouth, the evident struggle to force these bars apart and escape. Something has driven fear to his soul. Killed him." Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. No. Alrighty, let's see, where we go. Okay. Sometimes you gotta drop a few bombs here and there. Alright. Something has driven fear to his soul, killed him. I remember the words vaguely. When MS had finished speaking, I did not reply. Not until he had stepped forward and bent over the distorted face of the thing before me did I attempt to speak. When I did, my thoughts were a jargon. "What in God's name," I cried, "could have brought such a horror to a strong man? What—" "Loneliness, perhaps," suggested MS with a smile. "The fellow is evidently the watchman. He's alone, in a huge deserted pit of darkness, for hours at a time. His light is merely a ghostly ray of illumination, hardly enough to do more than increase the darkness. I've heard of such cases before." He shrugged his shoulders. Even as he spoke, I sensed the evasion in his words. When I replied, he hardly heard my answer, for he had suddenly stepped forward, where he could look directly into those fear-twisted eyes. "Dale," he said at length, turning slowly to face me, "you ask for an explanation of this horror. There is an explanation. It is written with an almost fearful clearness on this fellow's mind. Yet if I tell you, you will return to your old skepticism, your damnable habit of disbelief." I looked at him quietly. I had heard MS claim at other times that he could read the thoughts of a dead man by the mental image that lay on the man's brain. I had laughed at him. Evidently, in the present moment, he recalled those laughs. Nevertheless, he faced me seriously. "I can see two things, Dale," he said deliberately. "One of them is a dark, narrow room, a room piled with indistinct boxes and crates, and with an open door bearing the black number 4167, and in that open doorway, coming forward with slow steps, alive, with arms extended, and a frightful face of passion, is a decayed human form. A corpse, Dale. A man who has been dead for many days, and is now alive." MS turned slowly and pointed with upraised hand to the corpse on the grating. "That is why," he said simply, "this fellow died from horror." His words died into emptiness. For a moment I stared at him. Then, in spite of our surroundings, in spite of that late hour, the loneliness of the street, the awful thing beside us, I laughed. He turned upon me with a snarl. For the first time in my life I saw MS convulsed with rage. His old lined face had suddenly become savage with intensity. "You laugh at me, Dale," he thundered. "By God, you make a mockery out of a science that I have spent more than my life in studying. You call yourself a medical man, and you are not fit to carry the name. I will wager you, man, that your laughter is not backed by courage." I fell away from him. Had I stood within reach, I am sure he would have struck me. Struck me, and I have been nearer to MS for the past 10 years than any man in London. And as I retreated from his temper, he reached forward to seize my arm. I could not help but feel impressed at his grim intentness. "Look here, Dale," he said bitterly. "I will wage you £100 that you will not spend the remainder of this night in the warehouse above you. I will wager £100 against your own courage that you will not back your laughter by going through what this fellow has gone through, that you will not prowl through the corridors of this great structure until you have found room 4167, and remain in that room until dawn." "Good morning, Rose. Good morning." There was no choice. I glanced at the dead man, at the face of fear, and the clutching, twisted hands, and a cold dread filled me. But to refuse my friend's wager would have been to brand myself an empty coward. I had mocked him. Now, whatever the cost, I must stand ready to pay for that mockery. "Room 4167, I replied quietly, in a voice which I made every effort to control, lest he should discover the tremor in it. "Very well. I will do it." It was nearly midnight when I found myself alone, climbing a musty, winding ramp between the first and second floors of the deserted building. Not a sound, except the sharp intake of my breath and the dismal creak of the wooden stairs, echoing through that tomb of death. There was no light, not even the usual dim glow that is left to illuminate an unused corridor. Moreover, I had brought no means of light with me, nothing but a half-empty box of safety matches, which by some unholy premonition I had forced myself to save for some future moment. The stairs were black and difficult, and I mounted them slowly, groping with both hands along the rough wall. I had just left MS some few moments before. In his usual decisive manner, he had helped me to climb the iron grating and lower myself to the sealed alleyway on the farther side. Then, leaving him without a word, for I was bitter against the triumphant tone of his parting words, I proceeded into the darkness, fumbling forward until I had discovered the open door in the lower part of the warehouse. And then the ramp, winding crazily upward, seemingly without end. I was seeking blindly for that particular room which was to be my destination. Room 4167, with its high number, could scarcely be on the lower floors. And so I had stumbled upward. It was at the entrance of the second-floor corridor that I struck the first of my desultory supply of matches, and by its light discovered a placard nailed to the wall. The thing was yellow with age and hardly legible. In the drab light of the match I had difficulty in reading it, but as far as I can remember, the notice went something like this: Warehouse rules. No light shall be permitted in any room or corridor as a prevention against fire. 2. No person shall be admitted to rooms or corridors unless accompanied by an employee. 3. A watchman shall be on the premises from 7 p.m. until 6 a.m. He shall make the round of the corridors every hour during that interval at a quarter past the hour. 4. Rooms are located by their numbers, the first figure in the room number indicating its floor location. I could read no further. The match in my fingers burnt to a black thread and dropped. Then, with the burnt stump still in my hand, I groped through the darkness to the bottom of the second ramp. Room 4167, then, was on the 4th floor, the topmost floor of the structure. I must confess that the knowledge did not bring any renewed burst of courage. The top floor. 3 black stair pits would lie between me and the safety of escape. There would be no escape. No human being in the throes of fear could hope to discover that tortured outlet, could hope to grope his way through Stygian gloom, down a triple ramp of black stairs. And even though he succeeded in reaching the lower corridors, there was still a blind alleyway, sealed at the outer end by a high grating of iron bars. Yeah. So Rose, we were. I had your nurse's, old nurse's story, and that lined up good to go. We'll do it on Sunday. It's all good. But yeah, I was like, yeah, we can just do it anyway. And everyone else in here was like, no, don't you dare! You got to wait for Rose. And then I was like, curses foiled again. And I would have got away with it too, were it not for those meddling mixer viewers. All right. Escape. The mockery of it caused me to stop suddenly in my ascent and stand rigid, my whole body trembling violently. But outside, in the gloom of the street, M.S. was waiting with that fiendish glare of triumph that would brand me a man without courage. I could not return to face him, not though all the horrors of hell inhabited this gruesome place of mystery. And horrors must surely inhabit it, else how could one account for that fearful thing on the grating below? But I had been through horror before. I had seen a man, supposedly dead on the operating table, jerk suddenly to his feet and scream. I had seen a young girl, not long before, awake in the midst of an operation, with a knife already in her frail body. Surely, after those definite horrors, no unknown danger would send me cringing back to the man who was waiting so bitterly for me to return. Those were the thoughts pregnant in my mind as I groped slowly, cautiously, along the corridor of the upper floor, searching each closed door for the indistinct number 4167. The place was like the center of a huge labyrinth, a spider web of black repelling passages, leading into some central chamber of utter silence and blackness. I went forward with dragging steps, fighting back the dread that gripped me as I went farther and farther from the outlet of escape. And then, after losing myself completely in the gloom, I threw aside all thoughts of return and pushed on with a careless surface bravado, and laughed aloud. So, at length I reached that room of horror, secreted high in the deeper recesses of the deserted warehouse. The number, God grant I never see it again, was scrawled in black chalk on the door. 4167. I pushed the half-open barrier wide and entered. It was a small room, even as MS had forewarned me, or as the dead mind of that thing on the grate had forewarned MS. The glow of my outthrust match revealed a great stack of dusty boxes and crates piled against the farther wall. Revealed, too, the black corridor beyond the entrance and a small upright table before me. It was the table and the stool beside it that drew my attention and brought a muffled exclamation from my lips. The thing had been thrust out of its usual place, pushed aside as if some frenzied shape had lunged against it. I could make out its former position by the marks on the dusty floor at my feet. Now it was nearer to the center of the room, and had been wrenched sideways from its holdings. A shudder took hold of me as I looked at it. A living person, sitting on the stool before me, staring at the door, would have wrenched the table in just this manner in his frenzy to escape from the room. The light of the match died, plunging me into a pit of gloom. I struck another and stepped closer to the table. And there, on the floor, I found two more things that brought fear to my soul. One of them was a heavy flash lamp, a watchman's lamp, where it had evidently been dropped. Been dropped in flight, but what awful terror must have gripped the fellow to make him forsake his only means of escape through those black passages? And the second thing, a worn copy of a leather-bound book flung open on the boards below the stool. The flash lamp, thank God, had not been shattered. I switched it on, directing its white circle of light over the room. This time, in the vivid glare, the room became even more unreal. Black walls, clumsy, distorted shadows on the wall, thrown by those huge piles of wooden boxes. Shadows that were like crouching men, groping toward me. And beyond, where the single door opened into a passage of Stygian darkness, that yawning entrance was thrown into hideous detail. Had any upright figure been standing there, the light would have made an unholy phosphorescent spectre out of it. I summoned enough courage to cross the room and pull the door shut. There was no way of locking it. Had I been able to fasten it, I should surely have done so, but the room was evidently an unused chamber, filled with empty refuse. This was the reason, probably, why the watchman had made use of it as a retreat during the intervals between his rounds. But I had no desire to ponder over the sordidness of my surroundings. I returned to my stool in silence, and, stooping, picked up the fallen book from the floor. Carefully I placed the lamp on the table, where its light would shine on the open page. Then, turning the cover, I began to glance through the thing which the man before me had evidently been studying. And before I had read 2 lines, the explanation of the whole horrible thing struck me. I stared dumbly down at that little book and laughed harshly, so that the sound of my mad cackle echoed in 1,000 ghastly reverberations through the dead corridors of the building. Uh-oh. What has he discovered? I don't know. About to find out. Let's do it. See what's going on. I'm just checking another page real fast. One second. Oh, no, that didn't work. Helps if I unscrew the top of my coffee lid. Here we go. There we go. Okay, so everyone's still okay, right? No one's having heart failure or anything like that, because this is some scary stuff. This is... If I'd known it was going to be like this, I would never have opened the pages of this bad boy. It was a book... I won't be able to sleep tonight. It was a book of horror, of fantasy, a collection of weird, terrifying, supernatural tales, with grotesque illustrations in funereal black and white. And the very line I had turned to, the line which had probably struck terror to that unlucky devil's soul, explained M.S.'s decayed human form, standing in the doorway, with arms extended and a frightful face of passion. The description, the same description, lay before me, almost in my friend's words. Little wonder that the fellow on the grating below, after reading this orgy of horror, had suddenly gone mad with fright. Little wonder that the picture engraved on his dead mind was a picture of a corpse standing in the doorway of room 4167. Tillable Cat is legit shook. I glanced at that doorway and laughed. No doubt of it, it was that awful description in M.S.'s untempered language that had made me dread my surroundings, not the loneliness and silence of the corridors about me. Now, as I stared at the room, the closed door, the shadows on the wall, I could not repress a grin. But the grin was not long in duration. A 6-hour siege awaited me before I could hear the sound of human voice again. 6 hours of silence and gloom. I did not relish it. Thank God the fellow before me had had foresight enough to leave his book of fantasy for my amusement. I turned to the beginning of the story. A lovely beginning it was, outlining in some detail how a certain Jack Fulton, English adventurer, had suddenly found himself imprisoned by a mysterious black gang of monks, or something of the sort, in a forgotten cell at the monastery of El Toro. The cell, according to the pages before me, was located in the empty, haunted pits below the stone floors of the structure. Lovely setting. And the brave Fulton had been secured firmly to a huge metal ring set in the farther wall, opposite the entrance. I read the description twice. At the end of it, I could not help but lift my head to stare at my own surroundings. Except for the location of the cell, I might have been in the same setting. The same darkness, same silence, same loneliness. Peculiar similarity. And then Fulton lay quietly, without attempting to struggle. In the dark, the stillness of the vaults became unbearable, terrifying. Not a suggestion of sound, except the scraping of unseen rats. I dropped the book with a start. From the opposite end of the room in which I sat came a half-inaudible scuffling noise, the sound of hidden rodents scrambling through the great pile of boxes. Imagination? I am not sure. At the moment I would have sworn that the sound was a definite one, that I had heard it distinctly. Now, as I recount this tale of horror, I am not sure. But I am sure of this, there was no smile on my lips as I picked up the book again, with trembling fingers, and continued. The sound died into silence. For an eternity the prisoner lay rigid, staring at the open door of his cell. The opening was black, deserted, like the mouth of a deep tunnel leading to hell. And then, suddenly, from the gloom beyond that opening came an almost noiseless, padded footfall. This time there was no doubt of it. The book fell from my fingers, dropped to the floor with a clatter. Yet even through the sound of its falling, I heard that fearful sound, the shuffle of a living foot. I sat motionless, staring with bloodless face at the door of room 4167, and as I stared the sound came again and again, the slow tread of dragging footsteps approaching along the black corridor without. I got to my feet like an automaton, swaying heavily. Every drop of courage ebbed from my soul as I stood there, one hand clutching the table, waiting. And then, with an effort, I moved forward. My hand was outstretched to grasp the wooden handle of the door, and I did not have the courage. Like a cowed beast, I crept back to my place and slumped down on the stool, my eyes still transfixed in a mute stare of terror. I waited. For more than half an hour I waited, motionless. Not a sound stirred in the passage beyond that closed barrier. Not a suggestion of any living presence came to me. Then, leaning back against the wall with a harsh laugh, I wiped away the cold moisture that had trickled over my forehead into my eyes. It was another 5 minutes before I picked up the book again. You call me a fool for continuing it? A fool? I tell you, even a story of horror is more comfort than a room of grotesque shadows and silence. Even a printed page is better than grim reality. And so I read on. The story was one of suspense, madness. For the next 2 pages I read a cunning description of the prisoner's mental reaction. Strangely enough, it conformed precisely with my own. Fulton's head had fallen to his chest, the script read. For an endless while he did not stir, did not dare to lift his eyes. And then, after more than an hour of silent agony and suspense, the boy's head came up mechanically. Came up and suddenly jerked rigid. A horrible scream burst from his dry lips as he stared like a dead man at the black entrance to his cell. There, standing without motion in the opening, stood a shrouded figure of death. Empty eyes, glaring with awful hate, bored into his own. Great arms, bony and rotten, extended toward him. Decayed flesh. I read no more. Even as I lunged to my feet, with that mad book still gripped in my hand, I heard the door of my room grind open. I screamed in utter horror at the thing I saw there. Dead? Good God, I do not know. It was a corpse, a dead human body, standing before me like some propped-up thing from the grave. A face half eaten away, terrible in its leering grin. Twisted mouth with only a suggestion of lips curled back over broken teeth. Hair writhing, distorted like a mass of moving, bloody coils. And its arms, ghastly white, bloodless, were extended toward me, with open, clutching hands. 6 p.m. Pacific. It was alive, alive. Even while I stood there, crouching against the wall, it stepped forward toward me. I saw a heavy shudder pass over it, and the sound of its scraping feet burned its way into my soul. And then, with its second step, the fearful thing stumbled to its knees. The white, gleaming arms, thrown into streaks of living fire by the light of my lamp, flung violently upwards, twisting toward the ceiling. I saw the grin change to an expression of agony, of torment, and then the thing crashed upon me, dead. With a great cry of fear, I stumbled to the door. I groped out of that room of horror, stumbled along the corridor. No light. I left it behind, on the table, to throw a circle of white glare over the decayed, living dead intruder who had driven me mad. My return down those winding ramps to the lower floor was a nightmare of fear. I remember that I stumbled, that I plunged through the darkness like a man gone mad. I had no thought of caution, no thought of anything except escape. And then the lower door and the alley of gloom. I reached the grating, flung myself upon it, and pressed my face against the bars in a futile effort to escape. The same as the fear-tortured man who had come before me. I felt strong hands lifting me up, a dash of cool air, and then the refreshing patter of falling rain. Uh-oh. It was the afternoon of the following day, December 6, when MS sat across the table from me in my own study. I had made a rather hesitant attempt to tell him, without dramatics and without dwelling on my own lack of courage, of the events of the previous night. "You deserved it, Dale," he said quietly. "You are a medical man, nothing more, and yet you mock the beliefs of a scientist as great as Daimler. I wonder, do you still mock the professor's beliefs?" "That he can bring a dead man to life?" I smiled a bit doubtfully. "I will tell you something, Dale," said MS deliberately. He was leaning across the table, staring at me. "The professor made only one mistake in his great experiment. He did not wait long enough for the effect of his strange acids to work. He acknowledged failure too soon, and got rid of the body." He paused. "When the professor stored his patient away, Dale," he said quietly, "he stored it in room 4170 at the great warehouse. If you are acquainted with the place, you will know that room 4170 is directly across the corridor from 4167. There we go. How's that? Yeah. All right. So that's some. That was a little cheesy. That was a little cheesy, but it was. It was like. Yeah, it was pretty fun, goofy horror, very light horror. But that was okay. That's it. What we got? We got through 2 short stories today. We got through Into Space. Who wrote that one? I forgot already who wrote that one. It'll tell me right here. Actually, if I look at the thing here. Where is it? Into Space by Sterner St. Paul. And The Corpse on the Grating by Hugh B. Cave. Hey, those are pretty fun. I liked them. Yeah. Anyway, it's just some short stories from 1931. Astounding stories of super science. Yeah, so we'll have to finish. On Sunday, yeah, Rose, we'll read your story on Sunday there, because we don't have time for it right now, unfortunately. But yeah, it is good to go. Good to go. I took a look at both of them there. I think I've read The Mexican before. I just took a quick little look at that there. Have not read Old Nurse's Story before. So that'll be a good pick. A good pick, I think. A very good pick. But there we go. That's kind of like bringing us to the end there. Well, I mean, it's going to be yeah. I think we'll just end bang on noon here. Noon for me. No, normally we'll go a little longer. I don't know, 15, 20, 30 minutes longer, something like that. But tell you what, yeah, I need to give my voice a bit of a rest. Yeah, because it's a lot. Yeah, so no book club on Friday or Saturday. That's okay, though. And we'll be doing lots of gaming. And then on, speaking of gaming tonight, we're going to be doing episode 5 of that Batman thing. Batman tonight, yeah. I'm Batman. So we're starting that at about 7 p.m. Pacific. And then I'm not sure what else we're going to do. Maybe, I don't know, maybe some RPG or something. Power Rangers fighting game. We'll try that one out. Battle for the Grid. And we'll see how that. Oh, they got some nice new emojis going on there. I like those little rainbow star thing. That's kind of cool too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of funny there. I was looking for a video file yesterday, or one in particular, and I stumbled across a copy of the original unaired pilot for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and it's man, yeah, they made a lot of changes to it. Actually, I'm gonna have to go find what the pilot was that they actually aired, because I don't recall the actual on-air pilot off the top of my head. Actually, what time do I normally start at night? 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. Yeah. Except Friday and Saturday I start earlier, around about 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. But yeah, Monday through Thursday about 7 p.m. Pacific. Friday and Saturday I try for about 4 p.m. Pacific. Sometimes I end up running late because stuff's happening. And then on Sunday is just a weird day. Book club at 2 p.m., movie night at 6 p.m. And then after that we have some kind of gaming going on. Yeah. In case anyone's wondering what the regular games are, Gears 5, which we're not playing actually till Tuesday. They're saving it all up for the new operation. Yeah, Gears 5, Halo 5, Halo Master Chief Collection, trying to get Halo Wars 2, trying to find more people to play that. We'll probably be playing some more Bleeding Edge, but I'm only going to be playing that on the weekends. Because it kind of sucks going in like with just 1 or 2 people. You need everyone to be on the ball with that. Forza Horizon 4, and a bunch of other stuff. I'll throw it up there. And we need to organize a new championship. We need a new tournament of some kind too. Oh, and over the weekend, yeah, a bit of Fortnite. Not a lot, just a bit. A bit of Fortnite, a bit of Apex. I want to try. Every time I load up on PUBG, everyone's just like, let's do something else. But I wouldn't mind doing some PUBG. It's been a long time since I've really played that. I mean, I've loaded it in a couple of times, but and we'll get some Dead by Daylight in there as well. And I don't care what anyone thinks. All right. But that's where we're at. Lady Death has got a nap calling. You just got up. You just got up. All right. Okay. That's all good. If you need a nap, you need a nap. What can I say? What can I say? But there we go. And there we go. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for the new channel sub. That was very kind. Paul Quinn, thank you. Oh, let's roll some credits. Let's do that. While I look forward to see who we're going to throw a host to. Who are we going to host? I don't know. It's going to be some creative stream here. Oh yeah, it's audience, teen. Oh, is it family friendly? Anyone? Let's see, what would be interesting? Who's Deranged Architect? Interesting. Who is... Well, they're doing sketching or something. Let's take a look. Let's see what these guys... Let's go take a look here. Oh, yeah, there we go. These guys are the best. There we go. Oh, look at that. Lightning FNC coming in #1. What? Oh, okay. Oh, boy. Man. And I'm sure those numbers are all off there. I'm sure they're off. They have to be. For His Girl Friday on Sunday. That's the movie for this Sunday. His Girl Friday. Oh, Ember's from the Tillable Cat. Thank you. Look at all these sparks. Orgon came in. The dude's playing Halo 5 all the time. We got to drag him into more of our Halo 5 matches. Except, you know, he always seems to be doing something when we're playing, right? There we go, and more stickers. There were more than 3 King Carrington stickers thrown down. I know that for a fact. Oh, no, look at all them hosts that came on in. A lot of hosting. I like all that. Oh yeah, the Archibald. Oh yeah. And a new subscriber. Thank you, Paul Quinn. You got us to our target today. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's very kind, very kind. All right. There you go. Don't forget, everyone, there is the super secret section on Discord, which is yeah, just link your Mixer account to link your Discord account to Mixer. And if you're a channel sub, you get all these extra little perks in there, which not a lot of people do. Not a lot of people do. There we go. Who is this anti-draw? I can't get the oh boy, he's got a weird name too. Anti-draws is his Mixer name. Okay, I can't get his stream to load. Okay, that's a shame. All right, who's doing acrylic painting? Deranged Architect. Okay, all right. Let's take a little look here. Oh, he's gonna be. Oh, he doesn't even have a name. It's still just All right, okay. Yeah, it's okay. We've got some teen or family-friendly rated creative art stream coming up. Never heard of this dude before. He must be new because his actual number is just mixer.com / a whole string of numbers because his actual picked name hasn't filtered up yet. So he's got to be brand new. Just take a little look in there and see what's going on. You all have a great night. Thank you very much. We'll see you later tonight, 7 p.m. Pacific. It's going to be great. And yeah, so gaming tonight, Friday, Saturday, and next book club is on Sunday.